Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts,
Dr. LaFonya Jones,
Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is down to earth, informative, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up the volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back to session 19, Toxic Positivity.
Okay, interns, this topic is one of the topics that was chosen by you all. So we wanted to make sure we address it so that you all know that, we respect your topics too. We like your thoughts.
We want them.
Yes, we want them. Okay, so what is toxic positivity? I know you probably are asking that. So this term refers to an overgeneralization of happiness, optimistic state that results in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of the authentic human emotional experience.
Mouthful.
I was about to say, baby, that's a word right there.
It is. Oh my God. So you're going to have to probably rewind it a couple of times to get all of the words because I had to stop reading and say the words.
Basically, too much happy.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. And we especially thought this would be a good topic to bring up right now because we're preparing to go into the lovely holiday seasons, and they're not always lovely, and that is definitely okay. Whether it's a happy time, whether it's a sad time, angry time, whatever, you just need to make sure that you are appropriately dealing with whatever emotions come up. And we thought talking about toxic positivity is something that really isn't discussed very often.
Yeah.
Well, because it's almost like an oxymoron, positive just based off our whole connotation of that word usually means good.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, how can positive be bad? But
and we're not being negative Nancy's, because we do think that there's a level of positivity that we do need to have to get through our day to encourage us and things like that and to encourage other people. But there can be some toxicity that comes along with that positivity as well.
I like to think in movies and music, right? So the movie that comes to mind for me, since we're talking about holiday season, is Elf. With Will Ferrell.
Yes, I love that movie.
It's crazy, but
yes. So when I think of like toxic positivity, like it's just overboard. Like what in the world, dude?
Yeah.
Can you turn it down a couple notches? But that's what comes to mind for me when I think about just a visual example of what that would be.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if we only pay attention to the positive parts of our day, it doesn't give us room to acknowledge the negative side, the negative portions of our day, so that we can make sure we address what's going on in our life, address our feelings. It does not allow us to understand what's going on with our bodies too, because of course we know that emotions are connected to our physical sensations as well, and so if we're not paying attention to that, we can't identify the proper emotion.
They talk about this a lot in anybody that takes yoga, does yoga, practices the asana. But you have to do the light and the shadow work. Both are important and both have a place. You don't need to dwell too heavily in either side because, and we've talked about this. We have talked about this several times. You delve too far into the side of shadow, you become depressed. You have a lot of issues that pop up that we normally talk about as far as mental illness goes. And that also can be said if you veer too far over in the happy side. We've talked about being manic or being super erratic and all over the place, or overly obsessed with people and different things of that nature. So you got to have a good balance, light and dark.
I used to have a quote at the bottom of my email that used to say, everybody loves sunshine, nobody loves rain, but you can't have a rainbow without a little rain.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, you got to have a little bit of both in order to really, one, appreciate what positivity is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly negating the dark side or, the shadow side, as you say, then you don't even know how to appreciate that sunshine and that light side.
Yeah. It reminds me of that movie. I can never remember the title, but the cartoon that came out a few years ago with all the emotions.
Oh, Inside Out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And how I think her name was Joy. I always thought that she was like trying to motivate people and do X, Y, and Z, but she realized how much she needed all the other emotions in order to be an okay person. And when
sadness.
Even sadness. And when you avoid these things, that's when problems start happening. And this little girl in this cartoon had a whole bout of depression that was just going unmanaged.
Yeah. Unaddressed negative emotions is just suppression. It doesn't mean that the situation or emotion goes away. It just means that it's just lingering and you're not doing anything about it. So then you end up on this hamster wheel that becomes bigger and bigger until you, as Dr. Wall liked to say, implode or explode.
Oh, absolutely.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Y'all know we are big advocates on having emotional intelligence, and toxic positivity is an example of not having great emotional intelligence.
No, because on the outside it seems like you've got it going on.
Oh yeah.
To the person that doesn't know you, especially, you seem like, oh man, they're so chipper.
Yeah.
They're so bubbly. I don't know. Oh, they're so motivating.
And that's unsustainable. Like,
no.
You can't sustain that for too long because life happens. And we all know that life happens to everybody. Like, you're not exempt from life happening.
Yeah. You know what a good example movie-wise, and this may not work for some people, is the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory, the original. Not
with
the
Gene
remake.
Wilder?
Yes, with Gene Wilder. And you see all these different people come from different walks of life, many of them rich and everything together, but you see that they're not okay. They're a little evil. But you also see that Gene Wilder, who is supposed to be Willy Wonka and has all this great factory and all these people that love him and work for him, even though he is secretive and a recluse and all these other types of things, you see that he has a lot of complexity to him in the movie, and has sadness and disappointment and anger, and the person who's the most happy ends up being the poorest person who's had balance.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, that idea of being positive all the time, that overly happy feeling, that's exhausting.
I'm tired thinking about it.
Yeah. And I think this has been heavily perpetuated by social media.
Yes.
Because you think about the memes and everything that kind of comes out, you see these like relationship goals and, people have gone on vacation and it seems like everybody is doing well. Somebody's got opened or started a business, and somebody's writing a book, and somebody's gone on, they went to Bali, and then this other person, they just got a new car. And it's like you feel bombarded by all of these good things that it almost does the reverse.
It do. It makes you feel less than about yourself. And somebody brought this up about my journey and me posting different things online the whole year, and I was like, I wanted to post to make people aware, because I'm not calling all y'all the introverted me. It's like, y'all good. But also I did that because I wanted people to know that it's not always easy. It's days where I don't feel like getting out of bed. It's days where it's a struggle. But there's also triumph and all kind of other things. You need to show people what being a well-rounded person looks like. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's ugly.
True.
Yeah. And the thing is, I would consider the three of us to be entrepreneurs, and we have a great advantage right now because we are entrepreneurs. We have the opportunity to show people both sides, the stability of ownership and what that looks like, how to go through the emotions, how to still keep yourself together, but still be able to fall apart if you need to. I'm at the point in my life, I don't care what other people think of me.
I thought she was about to cuss y'all.
I did.
said,
I was waiting
it's
on
coming.
it. I was like,
She
I had
censored
to-
herself.
I have a sister in sailorhood. Oh my God.
I had to
I got
censor
excited,
it.
y'all.
Yeah, I had to censor that because we got people listening. And so, so my thing is, like, I'm at the point in my life, I don't care what other people think about me.
Yeah.
I don't care if you see me vulnerable. I don't care. Like, if you can't handle my feelings and you can't handle my vulnerability, that's your issue, not mine.
Girl, say that.
So and then what I do is I try to make sure I surround myself by people, correct sentence, by people who can handle my vulnerability.
Yeah.
And if they need to, they will cry with me. So
Hard.
yeah, exactly. And so if you don't have those type of people around you, you are around the wrong people. If you got to wear a mask around the people that you are with, those are not your people.
No COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not COVID masks.
Facade.
Yes. Girl, I forgot we got to wear the mask. Okay. Yes. So let me explain that again.
This is going to be so funny in like 20 years. It's gonna be
I
like,
was like, what?
COVID.
Yes. So I mean, not the COVID mask. I mean, if you have to wear a facade in front of the people that you're around, then those are not your people, because you can't even be your true self. And that's one of the ways we continue to get away from who we are, because we can't even be true to who we are around in front of the people that we are around.
Exactly. There's this quote that says, everybody in your circle is not in your corner. And I believed that.
I like it. You said the quote early.
But it's so important, though. Like,
very true.
you need, and we've talked about this before in this broad, like, you really need your support system. You need to have backing when you're going through the different trials and tribulations, not just for when it's going good, when it's going bad, when it's just like, whatever. You need support through everything.
Yeah.
So what does toxic positivity actually look like? So if our interns are out there, as they do, living their life, trying to live their best life, how do they know if they are practicing toxic positivity?
I would say, one, putting up a facade to hide your true feelings.
Yeah. You see this in the person that won't let people get close to them. They're always perfect. They're always put together. And this is another reason why I take it so seriously to help Black men and women in therapy, because we don't get to take our facade off in the rest of the world. But you got to come in this office and take it off, because we hide behind that strong Black man, that strong Black woman trope that we talked about in the beginning of us doing our sessions. And that is a sign of toxic positivity, like always being strong, always like, I got it together, I'm happy. No, you not. You just cried in your car for 30 minutes before you came into work. Stop lying to yourself and stop lying to the people around you. And what I've noticed, if you don't adjust that, people keep putting more and more on you.
Yeah. But even when you show that, then people think we said it in trope tripping, people think you're irrational.
Or weak.
Oh,
That's even harder.
Yeah, because you can't be weak, allegedly.
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of go with people that practice toxic positivity is they rely on like old sayings to kind of justify their behavior. Like, and this is no slight to my religious folks, but like that whole everything happens for a reason. God don't make no mistakes.
God didn't do that though. You did it.
Right. Like relying on those kind of platitudes of everything's going to be all right. Don't worry, be happy. Just like relying on that kind of thought process to kind of justify staying where you are and not doing the work to really deal with whatever it is that's going on for you.
I definitely agree with that. And I think as a Christian, that's not biblical. That's not biblical at all, because the Bible say faith without works is dead. So there are things that you need to be doing to get yourself out of the predicament that is, happening around you, and just faking it till you make it is not going to do. It's unhealthy. It's dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring it up, if it was necessary, since it is. Facing reality is very frowned upon in the Christian community. So like for me, one of my biggest struggles in my walk with God has been faith, like and patience. Whatever. So anytime I have a test, it always seems like my test is to test my faith or to test my patience. And a lot of times I get frustrated with God, because I'm like, God, really, again? And so, of course, dealing with people in the church, they want to scripture you to death. They want to, Bible beat you. And it's like they want to make those statements like there's life and death, in the tongue, or, cast all your cares on the God, and because he cares for you. Those types of scriptures, they work. And I'm not saying that, his word doesn't work, but God is a big enough God for me to feel my emotions and him being able to handle it. He said that I can get angry, but don't sin in my anger. So that means I can feel my negative feelings. Yeah. And still be able to believe that God is my healer. God is my provider. I worship God. I praise God. You know what I mean? I can still do that and feel negative.
You can that's
what tears are for.
if you really read the Bible, you see that people renting their clothes, not renting as in like renting, but like tearing their clothes and different, like all of that stuff happened in the Bible. A lot of people pick and choose what they want to take out of their holy books, and I'm saying across all faiths, not just Christianity, and that's a hindrance. You need to read the book in context of what's actually happening in it. We're not gonna go down that road, because I'm
getting ready to say something about Job, because they always want to use Job as, God is going to give you double for your trouble. But Job had to go through a process. He even said it would have been better for me not to have been born. He did that first. They skipped that part.
Yeah, that wasn't no easy thing, and I remember reading the story of Job like consistently 11 years ago, because that's when my mom went through her breast cancer battle. And so my mom decided to take a specific character and lean on their story through her journey. And Job was the person that she chose, because there were so many other things going on as well. And so we would read it and we would process it and all that. Everybody paints Job like he just said, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Right.
Thank you, Lord, for this lovely famine. And for my wife and the kids dying and all this other,
and my money being taken. That's not what he did.
That's not. He was in mourning. He had to reap. Like, it was a lot that happened, and so I think people try to tie stuff up and make it look cute. Another good example of this in the Christian world, if anybody watches Greenleaf or watched Greenleaf. That is a prime example of how Christians have toxic positivity in the church. All this deceit and craziness stuff is going on behind closed doors, and then you see them smiling and shining in your face. Everybody got to be real.
Be real about it. When people do that, now, because I don't think it's just Christians that do that, but when people do that, you then give them expectation that you're supposed to smile when I'm gonna say need to be, and I know that's strong, but when you need to be crying or when you need to be hurting, but because you have this facade on, you're scared to do it because of the expectations of other people.
I don't understand that. I remember, and y'all know when I was going through my journey or whatever, and I can't remember if it was my third or my fourth treatment. Like, that was my one treatment that just messed me up. I wasn't okay. Like, I was really nauseous, and my mom said, "Are you okay?" And I was just like, "No." And she trying to hold her tears together. I'm like, "We can cry together." The nurse crying. And I was like, that gives you that experiential intimacy that you need when you're going through something like that, you can depend on people and you can be vulnerable, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be raw. It's okay to be emotional. It doesn't have to be like, I must hold these tears in. Like, what?
Yeah.
Where they do that at?
Emotional lack of intelligence school.
Well, I think that's a throwback to this broad episode that we did, talking about like the complexity of humanness. You know, that we forget that you can have multiple feelings that coexist.
Yeah.
Now, I know, you know, our theoretical books are going to say that that's a problem, you know, however, we are complex. You know, we're not these little nice, neat little boxes. You know, we are a big cobweb of different things. You know, one is tied to the other, that's tied to the next, that's tied to the one before it. You know, so it's okay to be happy and sad and angry and disgusted and whatever, all simultaneously.
And it ain't hard living in today's times to feel all of them at the same time.
Very true.
Yeah. And then you end up feeling overwhelmed and not knowing what feeling you're experiencing, but just know that you're feeling something. You know, to go back to your original question, Dr. Strickland, about how do they know that they're in toxic positivity, trying to just go on with your day by stuffing or dismissing emotions is another way to determine that as well.
Yeah. I was when I was doing my research, one of the things they were talking about was how excessive happiness or like excessive positivity can lead you to becoming careless. Because
turn that humanity off.
Yeah. Because positivity in and of itself, just by the way we define it, suggests that things are good. So if something is good, I don't really need to pay attention to the details of what's kind of going on. And, you know, this particular article was talking more in a work sense, how it can make you more careless at work, because if you're always thinking things are good, you're not going to be paying attention to the details of like this report or these numbers or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do think that can kind of be broadened out to other areas in life.
I can see that. I think in our clients, we often hear them say, well, I don't have a reason to not be happy, so I need to be happy. And it's like, you don't have to be on the brink of death to have other emotions. Like, or they compare like, well, nobody's done this to me, like traumas and different things like that. And I'm like, what are you feeling in this moment? If you don't feel good just because you don't feel good, it's okay. Let's talk about that. Let's get to the root of it.
Yeah.
But just covering things up and putting on that facade is going to cause you some problems in the future.
The one that kills me is when my patients say that I'm the one that people lean on the most, so I don't have anybody to have my emotions with, or either they feel guilty for feeling their emotions because they're the one that people come to all the time with their problems.
And then they be mad because don't nobody want to help them, because you are allowing yourself to be put in that situation. And I'm saying that as a whole giver, and I got rescuer tattooed on my forehead. You know, you got to put some boundaries in place.
Yes.
You know,
and I typically, like, when people come in and they have that type of mentality, what I do is I end up writing whatever it is that they got going on in their life, because I have a dry erase board. I mean, why I always say dry erase board? A chalkboard in my office. So what I do is when they come in and they tell me things like that, I write all of what they're telling me they're going through on the board. And I say, and I go through each one and I say, whose situation is this? Well, that's my brother. Okay. Whose situation is this? Well, that's my mom. Whose situation is this? Well, that's my dad. Okay. So you mean you coming to therapy to see me because of other people's stuff? You got anxiety because of other people's stuff. You depressed because ain't none of this yours.
Yep. That's the plight of the rescuer.
It is.
Everybody got time for that. That's why when people come to me, okay, what we talking about? Are you just venting, or you need me to solve something? Like, what version of me do you need? You need Nichelle? You need Nene? Or you need Dr. Wall? Because Dr. Wall don't visit people she know.
That's hilarious.
Because it's unethical. You know, no dual relationships up in here.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's certain tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM.
Yeah. So another one I would say, as far as signs of toxic positivity, is minimizing other people's experiences with feel-good quotes, like we were just talking about, or statements.
Girl,
Those are. It's so funny because we all do them.
Oh,
I mean, even as therapists, I'm like, I know I've said that stuff before. You know, it's okay. It's going to be all right. You'll get through this. You know, you're strong enough. Have faith. You know, all of those things. But when you sit down and think about it, it's like, man, but did that allow that person to emote, or did it unintentionally? Because I don't ever think people do this maliciously.
no.
You know, it usually comes from a place of, you know, care and concern for that person's well-being. But unintentionally, you're suggesting, like, you know, you should really be okay. Like, this really ain't that bad. Like, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Now, sometimes people say that, literally.
They do.
But even when you use it in a nice way, it still is suggesting that to the other person.
And I think as therapists and other therapists that listen to our podcast, I think you need to be very mindful of how you approach your clients' emotions. You need to give them permission to feel and healthily express their emotions in session, and don't stifle them. I know we three are in a clinicians of color group, and they posted a question a few months or weeks ago, I can't even remember, but you know, how do you respond when your client cries? Do you hand them tissue? Do you, like, what do you do? And they talked about how, like, handing tissue can sometimes cut them off, and meaning that they need to take care of it.
That's why I think in all of our offices we have little stationary type tables or something right there with Kleenex boxes on it, and I just let them grab it on their own. It's right there.
Yeah, because I let you wipe that on your sleeve all day.
Yeah. I tell my clients all the time, hey, it's salt water. It's okay. If it's got to come out, it's got to come out.
Yeah. I don't think the only time I've ever handed tissue to a client that was crying is if they ask me, you know, do you have some tissue? And if they don't see the box that's sitting on my table or the table that's next to them.
I think one of the reasons I have passed a client tissue in the past is because that's one of those hard cries when they cover their face and they go down, and I need them to get, like, sit back up so they can breathe. So I'll pass them the Kleenex box for them to distract them from that part. So they can sit up.
Yeah. It's self-soothing. When you typically get into that tough of an emotional state, you typically curve into yourself to be protective. And it's an emotionally protective stance. I mean, it's a physically protective stance too, because you got to protect your organs and stuff, but that's also what you do emotionally, spiritually, when you're hurting.
Yeah. I don't know why people don't like to cry, because I hear my clients say
all
that all
the time. But it's so funny. I have so many clients that say they don't like to cry in front of people, but literally cry the entire session.
Yes.
One of my clients that y'all know very well, been coming to us for a minute, said, I finally realized that crying is cathartic. Yeah, told you that about 3 years ago. I was like, you the one over there stuffing it down. You better go and let that out.
No, I know. I can definitely off top think of like 2 or 3 people that and it's not even like they're trying to cry. It's like the second they walk in, like tears, all they do is just continuously like just stream down their face. And it's not like a boo-hoo or anything. It's, I mean, like it's just coming out.
It's like
it's uncontrollable.
It's Pavlov now. As soon as they walk into the conditional learning, my brain went blank, y'all.
I thought the learning part. I was like, what is the okay?
So they have attached being able to release their emotions to your office or to your session. So I mean, that's a good thing, but it's something that they need to start to incorporate outside of just that 1 hour.
Yeah, because I always have clients to come in, and as soon as they sit down, they start crying. Why? And then they say, why is it every time I come in here, I start crying?
I have that effect on people.
And that's what I tell them. I be like, well, hey, a lot of people do that on that couch.
And it's okay.
It is.
Ain't nobody judging you.
No.
I tell my clients all the time, I said, if you could read my mind, all the stuff I got going on, you'd be like, oh, this is normal. This is okay. Because it is.
Yeah.
You walking around stoic is weird. Like, that's odd. Come on now. You're not a robot.
No. Not at all.
Yeah. So trying to shame and chastise other people for expressing, frustration or any other emotion, that's unhealthy.
We got to stop that.
Yeah.
And, in this day and age now, it made sense for a different time. It would still be great if people were much more emotionally healthy back then, but the times were different. You needed to have a certain level of toughness, hardness, stoicism, for survival reasons.
Yeah.
However, in today's times, a lot of those things are not as applicable on a daily basis as they used to be. So, not being able to freely express is severely unhealthy. The other thing I was thinking about, toxic positivity, just popped into my head actually, which was not part of my research, was the participation trophy.
Go and break that down for us.
So somewhere between like the 80s and 90s, this idea of winning and losing became a bad idea for kids. That, losing hurt children's self-esteem, and, competition was not a great, idea. So even if you lost, you still got, a ribbon or a trophy or something for participating. Which, just thinking about it, I'm like, that's actually toxic positivity right there. You're not allowing children to experience the fact that they're going to lose, and that is a part of life. You're not gonna, my husband will love this. If you're not first, you're last.
Lord help.
For those that know, Ricky Bobby.
I love it. I love Ricky Bobby.
Little
that
baby Jesus. I'm sorry, y'all.
But like there is no such thing as two number ones.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Not in most situations anyway. You rarely have ties. Come on now, y'all.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, it's okay to lose. It's okay to experience adversity. It doesn't mean that it's going to, kill you. It doesn't mean that your self-esteem is going to be completely, taken away. That there is a lesson and a, dare I say, a beauty in adversity. Again, that kind of throws back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, that you understand to appreciate the win. So if you get number one, but I also get a ribbon and a trophy, then for you, your number one don't mean nothing.
Right.
It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Well, what in the world am I celebrating if we're all celebrating?
Yeah.
Right. And then you can definitely stifle that child's ability to thrive, which is why we now start seeing clients that have that failure to thrive syndrome.
You have to have balance in that. Like it's okay to show your children or anybody how to get through a problem. When I tell you that a lot of times we have to talk about problem solving, aka being solution focused in sessions, it's crazy the amount of time that we have to spend on that, because a lot of people just really don't know how to use deductive reasoning or deal with emotions that don't feel the greatest. It's partly because of that. They went too far to the other side of the extreme.
And I think it also breeds a sense of entitlement.
You ain't. That's a whole session, right?
We
there.
need to have a whole different podcast for that. That's
you
a
know,
title.
because if I've always won, if I've always experienced, you know, I think kids nowadays definitely struggle with this a lot, because the way we've set things up for them, it's almost like we boomeranged to the complete opposite side, where kids used to be like, you had to be a little adult, like there was no room for you to be a child, and then somehow we boomeranged over to the opposite side to where you're so precious and so
they're the immortal
fragile that now I must take care of everything for you so you can't experience anything bad.
No, it's like what was her name? I'm going back to the chocolate factory. Bianca, is that her name? The blue dress that ended up having to be juiced. We just gonna call her Bianca because she was a blueberry. But she was that whole entitlement.
I'm sorry. When you say chocolate factory.
No, non-pedophile.
Yeah. I was like, what is she talking about?
Willy Wonka.
She ready to go there?
I know. I was like,
no, not him.
I was like, I don't know nothing about no blueberry in
that song
or that album.
Not
gotcha.
him.
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka, not the petty. They know I can't stand him. But she's a great example of that, because she walked in there like her stuff didn't stink, and she was like, I want this right now, Daddy. Just buy it for me. Like, it was just a hot mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think, we're gonna stick a pin in that one. Entitlement.
Yeah, we need to do that one for real. We need to add that to the list. So I would say that when we, I guess, pressure ourselves to live by that toxic positivity, mindset, we put a lot of, that's putting demands on ourselves. And when we put demands on ourselves, it does not give us room to fail.
Yeah.
It does not give us room to experience those or learn from those experiences that we don't win first place, or that because it's so many times, just being in a doctoral program.
Girl, I'm gonna need a whole drink after this.
Will make you feel defeated
every day.
I promise you, I thought that was gonna be the death of me.
It's gonna be the death of all of us.
Yes.
Y'all know I didn't even open my laptop that I wrote my dissertation on for about 2 years.
I couldn't go over there. I couldn't ride on 635 for at least 4 years. I couldn't go to that mall over there because I had PTSD.
Girl. It's like, oh, it's done.
Yes. Because I felt like I've Jesus Christ, to get this degree, to be called doctor. Like, I probably
need a hug.
Yeah, because I'm having a panic.
Because I was like, what's going on over there?
She is struggling over there.
I know, because I'm looking, I'm like, okay, so what's happening?
Because, and then because people try to keep you in the program, obviously, by saying, you can do it, and being your cheerleader and stuff like that. But like, I need some time, because this right here, like, I got to study, I got to work 5 jobs, and I got to pass I don't want to say his name.
Yeah, come back.
My neuropsych test.
Reel in.
Yeah, it's putting yourself on. When you go there to that level, you are living in your expectations, and you're not living by your standards.
Yeah. And
your expectations are not real. They are these crazy beliefs that this is how this should be and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is that don't work. You got to live by your standards. Now, there will be times, of course, where you get to your expectations, but you shouldn't live there.
Because it's steps to get there. Like, and what comes to my mind when I think about that is P. Diddy, because he started off being the janitor in like a music studio. And then now he's P. Diddy, or whatever his name is now.
I think he Diddy right now. Yeah.
Any of those.
I still be calling him Puff Daddy.
Yeah, any of those will work.
Boy.
So he had to take the necessary steps to get to being who he is now.
Yeah. And he's still not at an excellent level. Not to knock him for everything that he's done, but when you think of excellence, I think a lot of people have to realize you normally think of like perfection. And
which nobody reaches.
No, you can't get there. Perfection is not reality. So
there's
stop
no
doing
such thing.
Right.
No, because it's all based off of you, and that's not gonna be the same for us three. It's not gonna be the same.
That's why I hate that word.
She got that look in her face, y'all.
I do, which that's toxic positivity right there. The pursuit of perfection. Again, it just
Stepford Wives.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, it's again, I think I said this one other time before, it's like trying to catch smoke. You know, you see it, and that's the funny thing about perfection, which again, this can be used for toxic positivity. You see it. Your brain tells you that it's achievable, but as soon as you step towards that line, that all of a sudden that goalpost moved back about 5 yards.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, hold on. I thought I was almost there. You got to be quicker than that.
Commercial.
Right.
It also reminds me of all those, is it dystopian? However you say that word, because my brain is not functioning correctly right now.
Dystopian.
Boom. First one. Movies that have been out. The Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever else, you know, all of those types of things, like they are trying to be these perfect people, and you find out that the perfect people more flawed than the people you done grew up with.
Yeah,
it's just not a healthy place to ever be. And don't put your value, your worth into what you see from other people. Kind of what you were talking about with social media. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've heard say this week, you know, well, they look like they just living their best life. Well, they might be living their best life, but what is your best life?
Right.
Because my best life is in the bed with a book.
And I'm like, they're living their best social media life.
Yeah. The highlight reel.
Right. And the thing is, they may be living their best life now. You don't know what they have to do to get to now.
And you don't know what's around the corner.
Right. Because we're always evolving. So there's always something for us to work on. Always.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I had a client ask me that something similar this week. They were asking me, like, when will I know that I've achieved it? Like, when will I know that and they didn't use the word happy. I can't remember what the specific word was, but it was something in that positivity realm. And I was like, well, you're going to always be going for more because you'll be at a different stage in life. So, you know, right now, you know, for example, if you are, you know, raising small children, your look of happiness or whatever bliss or joy is going to be different once you are an empty nester. And then it's going to look different again when you are in retirement age. And then it's going to look different again when you're in your, you know, golden years. So there's never going to be this moment where that's it. I have arrived. Yeah. Like it's done.
Yeah.
I've achieved.
That is when I meet Jesus. Them pearly gates.
And right. Like then it's done.
Yes.
Literally.
And then I get the well done, my good and faithful servant.
You know, and even then, for anybody that lives a spiritual life, you also know that that's just your body being done. You know what I mean? Like, we hoping there's some on the other side because 2020 done knocked us all out. But, you know,
yes,
that's just our body saying chunk and a deuce. It's not even, you still got other stuff to do.
You know, something else that I was thinking, you know, not to make a hard left turn here, but was toxic positivity. You know, a little bit earlier I was saying that, you know, it kind of makes you careless and that thing, kind of stuff like that. But I think another thing that it also does is it leads to confirmation bias.
Yes.
So for those that don't know what confirmation bias is, this is when you take new information, on a basis that old information is true and valid. So basically you discount pretty much everything that is the opposite of what you think and what you feel and what you believe, and only look for the things that confirm what's already in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think toxic positivity can lead to that kind of confirmation bias, that I'm only going to look for the things that make me feel good. I'm only going to do the things that make me feel good. I'm only going to say the things that make me feel good, without, again, looking at you are a whole complex human being that has a variety of emotions. And you are, like, Dr. Jones and Dr. Wall have both been saying, you are negating that experience to only look for the things that confirm what you want.
It's so interesting that you brought that up, and we brought up the Christian side of this toxic positivity, because I've been seeing a lot of people this year that have been living based on historical biblical teachings with those quotes and things like that, and it's been difficult for them to receive information about developing their own relationship with God and separating the relationship that grandmama had. So meaning, study the Bible for yourself and gather what you learn from that scripture, not based on what your grandmother said or what your mother said or your father said, but what did you learn from that scripture? Because what the thing is, and I told one of my clients this, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody's education or reading abilities, but y'all do realize that we learned the Bible from people who couldn't read.
Never thought about that.
They couldn't. How? What? How can they do that?
And just to be honest,
point.
people who studied the Bible, they already know, like, what we read now is a translation,
Right?
And it
It's
probably,
a translation of a translation of a translation.
so it's some stuff lost in
Right.
translation,
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's, we're not. I don't want to go down the religious sector because that had to be another session. Because I got much to say being a deacon's granddaughter.
Oh, my dad is a minister, so I get you.
Another area though that I have seen a lot of toxic positivity is in all the racial injustice that's been going on, all the politics that's been going on.
You had to bring that up.
I'm not going far down it, but it just reminds me of, like, you can do whatever you want to do technically, but being healthy, you can't sit up and steady look at something and have confirmation bias, and then you're like, well, I've never experienced that. And then this whole other grouping of peoples, multiple, are telling you something different. You only are going off of what makes you feel good, and there's a reality that you're not going to feel good about all parts of this situation. There's going to be moments in time where everybody got to make some adjustments. Everybody got to step their game up and become better. And that's one of the things that I've been noticing in that part of our epidemic here in the United States, is that everybody not trying to be better. Some people just want to be the same.
Because there's plenty of information out there that will confirm that things are not the way you learned them.
Or the life that you lived is not reality for everyone. So we're not gonna get real far off into that, but that is an area where I see a lot of toxic positivity.
I don't mind talking about it, but
we're gonna say that for another episode.
We only got so much time today.
I know.
I think that just to kind of add to the conversation here, the pursuit of happiness, it's so funny because it can lead to despair. Because when I was doing my research, one of the things that they were talking about is that sometimes it's the chase of happiness that's the toxic piece. And that once you quote unquote achieve happiness, you get into despair because that didn't look like what you thought it was going to look like. You had this vision in your head of this, this pinnacle of, I've arrived at my positivity, and wait, this is not what I envisioned. This is not, what did I do all of this for? I've been putting all this time into trying to be this positive person, and it still didn't get me what I thought I wanted, or it didn't get me anywhere, or it didn't get me that promotion, or it didn't get me this, relationship. And then that leads to depression.
Mm-hmm.
Because of, that lack of
expectation.
And achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's one of the reasons for me personally, when I'm doing, my sessions, if any of my clients are listening, and the ones that I've said this to will know, I hate using the word positive and negative in my sessions. I rarely ever use those two terms, and I stick with healthy versus unhealthy.
I definitely stick with healthy and unhealthy.
And that goes for good and bad.
Yeah, I don't use those two either. My clients can't even tell me that they feel how you feel today. Oh, I feel good. I need a real emotion.
I'm always like, what does that mean though? What are the characteristics of good?
And then they start telling you all this,
other.
Yeah, that leads to like you not good. That sounds discouraging or disappointing to me.
Or, I'm all right.
I'm okay.
What is that?
Right.
Y'all know how I love I'm fine.
Oh.
I'd be like, wait, what? I'm fine. What that mean?
Unless you talking about your beauty, don't say that to me.
Yes. But yeah, I think going into, we got to be careful. I think all this, we're kind of just boiling it down to say, is being careful with how you are talking to yourself. The expectations you're placing on yourself, and that if you're going to pursue the concept of happy, which, we've talked about that before, kind of our preferences for states of being other than happy or other than positive. But you want to be moderate in pretty much all areas, that too much of anything is not healthy for you. Too much exercise is not healthy for you. Too much, of course, high fat food is not good for you. Too much sleep is not good for you. Too much positivity is not good for you.
Emotional regulation, y'all. Like, you gotta be even. It's not always gonna be 50-50. I'm not saying that, but you gotta balance it out.
Yeah.
And know that it's okay to not be okay. Give yourself that permission to not be okay. You don't have to be in a hurry to get out of the way or get out of your feelings. Focus on changing those behaviors instead of changing your emotions.
Yeah.
Also, something that I think is important, if you find yourself rushing people out of their emotions, you need to check why you can't handle them. Because it's something in you that's squirming away from that, and you need to check you, not them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So understand what your happy means. Understand what positive means to you. Understand what negativity means. And don't be afraid. Being afraid of what you feel is the thing that's going to keep you in that space. And it's going to hinder your growth in so many areas.
And as is customary, we do have a quote. It says, "Good vibes only is a false and destructive narrative. Embrace your bad days. Allow yourself to feel sad, angry, and disappointed. We only move through pain by acknowledging it exists." And this is by Laura Dean Edwards.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at The Recycled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.